Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking to you about this. This is the Gene Paul TB-600 tenor trombone with the F attachment. This instrument was kindly sent to me by Gene Paul for the purposes of a review, so bear that in mind when you consider the things that I am going to say. And that is that I like this a reasonable amount, which for me is, from me, is pretty high praise. So this is a very generic, standard, safe style of intermediate level trombone. It has an 8.5 inch bell. It has a 547 thousandths of an inch bore to it. It's quite physically a larger trombone. So for instance, the distance between the two slide barrels is quite high, so which is sort of normal with larger trombones. So if you're a younger person, then you may struggle with some of the physical proportions of holding the instrument. The F attachment is an open wrap with a single rotor. It has quite a long pull on the tuning slide, so you could use this as a bass trombone because you do have the ability to get reasonably chromatic. And as I say, it's quite a standard, very safe sort of design. There's nothing particularly weird about this. Now that's a very good thing because it means that this is sort of a mass market instrument. It's the sort of thing that you could get and you're not going to go too far wrong. Once you sort of get beyond a certain level of playing, you may want to experiment with different types of valves. You may want to experiment with different types of metals, different types of slide constructions and different bell sizes and things like that. And that's the sort of thing that you will want to experiment with once you get beyond a certain point. Now, even though this is branded as an intermediate level instrument, it is the sort of thing that I would recommend for any sort of person who's got beyond the first stages of learning an instrument. I'm a big believer that if you give a beginner a rubbish instrument, they'll find learning hard and unenjoyable and they're likely to stop. Whereas if you give them a relatively new, relatively inexpensive instrument, then they are more likely to find it more enjoyable and they're more likely to continue with it. And this is the sort of level of instrument that I think would help facilitate that. So if you're looking at a trombone, you may wonder what's the difference between an instrument without an F attachment and one with an F attachment. The F attachment does a couple of things. It enables you to play lower. So with a trombone without an F attachment, there's a gap between concert E and low B flat that you can't realistically play unless you adopt false tones. Whereas with an F attachment, you can fill in most of those notes pretty easily. So you could use this as a bass trombone if you wanted to. The other thing that the F attachment enables is alternate positions. If you can't reach out to 6th position with your slide, then you can use your F attachment to enable those longer notes. That being said, if that's your sole reason for choosing an F attachment trombone because you don't have long arms, then an instrument like this may not be the most appropriate because you're probably also going to struggle with the distance between these two tubes because these are made for sort of reasonably, well, average sized hands. And if you aren't able to reach 6th position, because your arms are too short, then you're probably going to potentially struggle with this as well. It's the sort of thing you would want to sort of see how it feels in your hand before going. Speaking personally, I don't mind the valve. You sort of don't end up using it awfully often unless you're playing a bass trombone type role. My personal preference though is I love light slides. There's nothing ridiculous about this. It's not made out of lead sheet, but it is noticeably heavier than more professional grade slides. They're sort of saying you pay for less. is true when it comes to the weight of the instrument. The lighter an instrument is, it tends to cost more, particularly with trombone slides. So I personally would prefer a tenor trombone with a lighter slide. It just means that you can throw it around it with a little bit more agility. The good thing about having a slightly heavier slide, though, is that it's going to be a bit more resilient to bumps and bruises. So again, it's horses for courses and what is going to work for your situation. Yeah, if you have any questions about this, please feel free to put them down in the comments below. And thank you for watching.